Joining us now is political analyst Professor Joe Siracusa. Joe Siracusa, thank you so much for your time. Well, President Donald Trump has hit out at his British counterpart, Sir Keir Starmer, and let's listen to this again.
By the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Joe Siracusa, what do you make of that? I mean, is Trump right? And how damaging is this for the UK?
Good morning, Gabriella. Well, yeah, it is fairly damaging. Look, President Trump counts on his allies, his NATO allies especially, to come to the party. He expects them to make their facilities available to American forces, particularly at a time that he deems very important. It's quite clear that Starmer and his government is not exactly behind the president on this. They're trying to wiggle a little bit, saying that they will defend Cyprus and things like that. But the president is holding his allies to a high standard here. If the United States is going into combat, he expects them to step in behind them. Now, Lyndon Johnson expected the same thing when he went into Vietnam. He didn't get a single NATO ally who volunteered. In fact, they stayed clear of him. So, I've seen this story before. And, NATO, these European nations, they have a very strong tradition of socialist governments and centrist governments, center left and all the rest of it. And they're not buying President Trump's story about the imminent danger to the United States. It's a hard sell for some of these people, and they're starting to think that there may be a future without the United States. So why get involved in this one? And of course, the reach of Iran and the ability to gather or to initiate sleeper cells all over the world would have these people worried too. I mean, it doesn't take much to blow up a building in downtown London or Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Houston or any place else. So they're just being very, very cautious. But the president is holding them to a very high accountability.
And he's, in my opinion, right to do so. I mean, look what Keir Starmer's done to the UK. Donald Trump has also lashed out at Obama, posting this on Truth Social. If I didn't terminate Obama's horrendous Iran nuclear deal, JCPOA, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon 3 years ago. That was the most dangerous transaction we have ever entered into. And had it been allowed to stand, the world would be an entirely different place right now. You can blame Barack Hussein Obama and sleepy Joe Biden. Thank you, President Trump. Joe, is that a fair post from the president? What do you make of that?
I think it is too, because I didn't like that deal for a number of reasons. That is because at the end of the day, it allowed the Iranian government to acquire enough fissile material to make a bomb. But mind you, Gabriella, at the end of the day, you don't have to make a bomb, you can buy it. These people can buy something off the shelf if they get completely frustrated. Look, the Obama deal was a bad deal. He was very desperate to sort of settle that score. And a lot of people stuck their necks out there. And it was one of those things that didn't make sense to a lot of Republicans and a lot of political analysts and pundits in the United States. It was a very hard sell. But Obama wanted to be known as a man who was winding down nuclear weapons and things like that. He thought it was on the road. He wasn't a genius about foreign policy. He made some major mistakes, as a matter of fact. And I think it's right for the president to criticize this. But to go back and say, look, it would have all been different if I was around then. That's not exactly very useful, because I'm very interested in what President Trump is going to do today and tomorrow.
Trump is hitting Iran, but he's really got China in his crosshairs. As US energy production ramps up, China is right now deprived of cheap oil from Venezuela and Iran. So it's being argued that Trump's goal here is to transform this global order to America's advantage, which means reducing the influence of communist China. Would you agree with that?
Well, that would be a byproduct. I doubt that was top of mind when he went in on this. The Chinese take a lot of petrol and natural gas from that part of the world, and of course, what you don't see mentioned much in the news today is what's the impact of closing the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, 20% of the world's oil and gas goes through there. We've already had spiking prices. The Chinese are going to have to pay more for it somewhere else, as well as Europeans. And sooner or later, it means higher prices for everybody, inflation, and pretty soon you got everyone's Federal Reserve running around raising interest rates, and then ordinary Australians, Americans, and others have to pay more for their houses, their cars, and their credit cards. So this isn't a war that's sort of separated from everyday life. It's going to affect the Chinese in many, many ways. But I don't think the president set out to go into Iran to settle scores with China. If that happens, that's a bonus.
I want to ask you about Kamala Harris. Of course, she came out against what is happening in Iran, but she's making time to gush over anti-ICE protesters. Look at this.
In Minneapolis, just look at what we've been seeing. It's so fantastic. People coming out with their whistles, their smartphones, and videotaping, and, you know, with perfect strangers and in aiding perfect strangers. It's been so beautiful to see. And again, this is what I mean about we have the light inside of us. Like, we got to focus on this.
Joe, can I get your reaction to Kamala Harris there?
Well, she either has very bad minders or she has no minders at all. I mean, that kind of conversation is not very helpful, Gabriella. I mean, to suggest that getting rid of America's illegal aliens is a matter of finding the light within us. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. Look, the Democratic Party doesn't want to see her face in 2028. I don't know who's telling her to keep running. I mean, I suppose she has some friends within the organization, but she took the party down to historic defeats. They don't want to see her again. And frankly, if she wants to go and talk about, law and order issues, there are other things to talk about. And I think she should just sort of enjoy her retirement or find another job or something like that. But this idea of leading the protests against ICE, there may be legitimate causes there, but this idea that we're finding the light, that's just a little too flaky for a lot of people.
She's very flaky, isn't she? I know you suggest she goes and gets a new job. I can't see that happening. I think we're going to be seeing more of Kamala Harris over the next few years. Former President Bill Clinton, he has been grilled over the photographs of himself in a hot tub that was discovered in the newly released Epstein files. Let's just take a look. And Joe, I'm really keen to get your reaction to all of it. We've got a few clips to get through, but this is the very start of Bill Clinton explaining who was there, what on earth was going on.
So do you recall the details of this photo, or recall the photo being taken?
No, I don't think I ever knew the photo was taken.
And let's just look at the next one.
He wanted, when he knew I was coming, and he said he wanted to help me with my AIDS initiative, and he invited me to stay there. And he said, I want you to stay at this hotel, and I hope you'll use the pool. So I did. And then I got out and went to bed, exhausted.
He chuckles, lol, exhausted. And then, of course, he was asked, were there other people in the pool or the hot tub?
Were there other people in that pool or hot tub with you as well?
I don't think there's anybody in the hot tub. I didn't forgotten that there was anybody in the hot tub, but it was big, but it was about.
Well,
he's asking you in the pool
area. It appears
area.
this photo, there's a girl over here. Or there's someone.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
But he's also asking in the pool area whether other individuals.
I don't know who that is.
Bill Clinton claims that he was in the hot tub for 5 minutes before going, of course, straight to bed.
We went out, I swam around, I sat in the hot tub for 5 minutes, or whatever it was, and I got up and went to bed.
And then I have to ask this, did you engage in any sexual activity with this person?
End of story. Joe Siracusa, look, what did you make of that?
Well, he did not acquire the sobriquet Slick Willie for nothing. I remember him wagging his finger at the American public saying that he did not have sexual relations with that woman. I mean, Bill's got a little problem. He had a problem then, he has a problem now. He looks a little silly. He could have had some better answers, and he's very angry that he's there. Hillary was very angry that she was there. He could barely conceal that, as a matter of fact. But this idea of floating in a tub with strange women and not being able to explain anything, the American people aren't as silly as they look sometimes on television. I mean, they know one thing from the other. And, I always I credit to Bill Clinton something that a lot of people probably don't credit, and that is he began the decline of the imperial presidency. When I was a kid, we had some pretty class acts like General Eisenhower in the White House, and then John Kennedy. We had professional politicians. He comes along, governor from Arkansas, and he obviously has some problems, personal problems. His own campaign manager said after all the Monica Lewinsky business that he's just not that kind of dog that stays on the porch when the lights go off, and he's just the wrong guy. And he brought the presidency into disrepute. He should have been impeached. He could have easily been impeached. And so he sort of degraded the presidency a little bit. People were always in awe of the office. And I think he inspired a lot of people to go for it after that because, you had to have real credentials to become president of the United States. Bill didn't have any. And when he got in, he started to do a pretty good job. And then the economy became fairly prosperous. And so, but when he started to get caught out line, whether it was real estate deals, one thing or the other, and he just lied to the camera, and he obviously lied under oath. And the American people just sort of lowered the threshold for the White House after that. And keep in mind that while he had a good economy, well, a lot of presidents have a good economy. Keep in mind that Wall Street, since I think Bill Clinton's time, have been able to separate the White House, the soap opera in the White House, from the fundamentals of the American economy. That's why sometimes Wall Street doesn't care who's in the White House, as long as the economy works. And Bill, he did not do a very good job there. And the world wants to wake up or go to bed at night and wake up thinking that the United States is in good hands. And with Clinton towards the end of it, I wasn't sure. And frankly, I was a little embarrassed about him.
And you mentioned that Hillary Clinton was angry that she was getting asked questions about this too. Let's just look at her meltdown after testifying on Epstein.
There are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how that can occur?
I'm done with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So I would like to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So I would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah,
I'd like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Oh, no. Joe Siracusa, you've lost control and you're waving your finger, you're pointing, you're slamming your hand on the desk. What is she just having a meltdown?
Yeah, she is. She gave it all away there when she said, "You can find me in contempt until the cows come home." She knows that they know things that she can't really talk about. And look, she exhibited the same characteristics. It was the same act after Bill got caught. And a lot of Americans came to the conclusion, and I was one of them, that she either knew what was going on and was complicit, or she was as dumb as a doorknob. And so either way, they didn't want her in the White House. And so now she's playing stupid again. Like, Epstein was just a little playmate of her husband's. And she knew Ghislaine Maxwell pretty well, I suppose. But keep in mind, to be fair to Hillary and the others, Epstein was giving money away to all kinds of people. He was throwing all kinds of luxuries out there. And, he's got his own airplane, his own magic island. It would have been just too much for some of these people to resist. But Hillary didn't need Epstein. Bill did. Bill liked the idea that this guy was stroking his ego and giving money to his philanthropy and helping him out and all the rest of it. I just think in recent years, presidents, I think, make some very bad choices. Once again, they had better minders. They would have stayed away from guys like this. And look, Epstein was before he got caught in 2008 and then later on, he was sort of a creepy guy anyway. I mean, he used to hang around with all the wrong people. Gabriella, there is a Harvey Weinstein documentary I saw on Air China coming back from Berlin once a couple of years ago. And it had a picture of Weinstein, Epstein, and dare I say, President Trump, all sitting at the same table at Club 54, one of those renowned night spots. And, and if you had money and you passed through New York, that's where you hung out. And so, you would know these people whether you wanted to or not, whether you knew about their private lives or their secret sins or their crimes. Who would know? I mean, you have absolutely no idea. When people say on profiling, no one knew this guy was a serial killer, it's quite possible to be sitting next to somebody and know nothing. On the other hand, it's impossible to imagine everyone around you is as thick as you are, too. I mean, somebody must see what's going on. And Hillary got caught out, didn't want to be there. Bill got caught out and didn't want to be there. It's very embarrassing for the end of their careers, and they're going out on a very sour note because Americans can see one thing, that they're squirming like hell at deposition. They're not even in Washington. They're in some little hokey town near Albany, New York, which used to be the circuit for speakers in the 19th century. And so, they stayed away as much as possible. A number of their supporters said that they would run circles around the committee. But as you can see from the two clips you showed in your packages, they didn't run rings around the committee. The committee was asking all the right questions. Hillary and Bill just spit the dummy. And I bet they couldn't wait to get out of the room. And keep in mind, one was there for 6 hours, and the other one was there for 7 hours. You imagine grilling somebody for 7 hours and seeing that kind of behavior. I mean, it's not only difficult work, but it's embarrassing to watch.
Professor Joe Siracusa, political analyst, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Always great to speak with you.
Thank you.